Lethal Company has taken the internet by storm. But I might be a tad bit late to the hype, yeah. But let's just say, theoretically, your players are really into this game and you want to surprise them by running a Lethal Company inspired one-shot. Or maybe you just want to use the monsters from Lethal Company in your next game. Well, you're in fucking luck, because I'm right here and I'm going to help you. Let's see if I can get it. First of all, let's create all the monsters from the game. So far I have created Bracken, Coilhead, iOS Dogs, Hoarding Bugs, Jacks in the Boxes, Masks, Nutcrackers, and Thumpers. Now, I have also written a one-shot for this, but let's just go over the monsters. Maybe you want to add the Bracken to one of your dungeons, or maybe you just wanted to add the Blind Dogs as guards to one of the dungeons. I don't know. So let's just see. The Bracken. The Bracken is a medium plant neutral evil. He has a 50 nature EC, 20 hit points, speed of 55, and climbing 40. Climbing just, why not? He has proficiency saving throws, dexterity +7, skills perception +4. He has night vision, damage vulnerabilities are fire, since, of course, plant, and perception 18. Languages are none. Bracken has multi-attack and slashing attacks. The most prominent feature of Bracken's is grab and drag. If Bracken approaches from the back, it can try and grab you and roll a con 16 save. If the Bracken grabs you by the mouth, it makes you fall asleep. After which, its movement is doubled, so it's 110, and it's not dashing, just so you know. And it takes you to its lair, but while doing so, all creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against it. So basically, it's one thing that it takes, it breaks your neck and takes you away, but this time around, we are going to kind of flavor it in a different way. And it has Shadow Teleport. The Bracken can teleport from shadow to shadow if it's obscured in shadow. If the Bracken has been watching after the players for more than 10 rounds, it can teleport into the player's shadow. Eye Contact. If the Bracken is noticed while trailing the players, don't attack them if the players make very brief eye contact. Ask your players to roll a performance check of DC 13. If they pass, the Bracken does not attack. Lair. If the Bracken brings the player into the lair, the player falls unconscious and must start rolling death saves. If someone enters the lair while the Bracken is present, the fight is inevitable. In the lair, the Bracken loses its ability to teleport, instead gaining +2 to armor class and advantage on all attacks. Coilhead. Large construct, lawful evil. Really, all the Coilhead can do is coil replace, and you have to come up with your own idea of how the players are going to keep contact. Maybe they roll perception. Maybe you're using live D&D maps, so you can put their field of sight. Armor class 18, hit points 33, speed 70, and yeah, the other stuff. iOS Dogs are the easiest one because they're just all sources, but they're blind, so that's it. Hoarding Bugs, all they really can do is bite, but they will leave you alone if you just provide food scraps for them. Jack in the Boxes. Jack in the Box will spend the first 10 rounds winding themselves up, after which their speed increases to 120 feet. So, as long as the players leave the area or the dungeon, they're good. Masked. Mask is technically an item and a parasite. When a player picks up the mask, it has to make an intelligence saving throw DC 8. If failed, the player puts on the mask. On successful DC, they won't have to make a save for another 10 minutes until they drop the mask. Once they put on the mask, they fail. Once they put the mask, They fall into death saving throws. While the saving throws are happening, the mask controls the player and their character sheet. Once the player dies, the mask takes over the permanent host of the body. The only way to defeat the mask is to knock it unconscious. The mask is a cursed item with the goal of making as much of themselves as possible. If you plan on using the mask as an enemy before it has taken over any of your players, you can simply use a zombie stat block. Also, it has the attack Curse. The mask can puke on nearby humanoids, curse it 2, DC Con 17. Check if failed humanoid becomes masked 2. The Nutcracker. Really, he has a shotgun, and every 3 shotgun shots, it pokes its eye out. While doing so, it lowers it to a 10. Its armor class is lowered to a 10, and you can kill it. Thumper is again really easy. It's really just bites and has a lot of running speed. It has swimming speed because I believe it's based on a shark. Now, look, we have all the monsters. You know how they behave because you have probably played the game or you have seen stuff from the game. So now, let's move on to the one shot. Character creation. First of all, sorry, you cannot be any of the spellcasters. Sorry! You can only be the marshals, no half-casters. The only item you're allowed to bring are from a choice of these items which your party has to split. 2 shovels. The shovels will be using this stat block, which I will be reading out right now. This shovel is different because after using it, you can do so for another 2 rounds. Proficiency with a mace allows you to add your proficiency bonus to the attack grows for this weapon. You get 2 walkie-talkies, which you can flavor it somehow. I personally think you should flavor them as seashells. 4 stun grenades, which are these stat blocks, which basically force your enemy to roll a DC 15 check or be stunned for a round. 1 zap gun that needs a charge. But the zap gun works like this. This weapon leaves the target stunned, after which at the start of the next round the users of the zap gun roll dex and the enemy rolls a con. If the zap gun wins, the enemy stays stunned for another round. If the enemy wins, the gun can be used for another 5 rounds and the enemy is free. It's up to you to decide whether a character has proficiency with a firearm or not. 1 THP in Helmet, and again, unfortunately you can only be a human. A variant human is acceptable, but no feats that allow you to cast spells. Everything else you can create on your own. So no Aberrant Dragon Mark, no telepathic. I know that technically just gives you magical features, not spells, but still. And definitely no Fate Touched. He also adds that the zap gun needs a charge from Crystal inside the dungeon. Sigurd will also help you from afar using these magical seashells. The 2 seashells you have, and Sigurd has the 3rd one. He also provides you with 2 lanterns and 4 weird magical rocks, which he asks you to keep on you all times. The dungeon is guarded by blind dogs. And in any case, once the adventurers enter the dungeon, they're greeted with a room with 3 passageways. You can choose to either make the blind dogs an encounter or not. I suggest not to, since they're just Allosauruses. As the door behind the adventurers disappears, this is where our adventure starts. Sigurd also suspects that his co-worker, Mike, has to be still alive in the dungeon. This adventure is timed to 2 hours, 12 hours in-game. If the players don't leave the dungeon in the IRL 2 hours, they lose. You can modify the time, by the way. Also, these lanterns, they stay active for the next 1 hour, aka 6 hours in-game. Sigurd contacts the adventurers and proclaims, "I think the door is shut." The goal of this one-shot is to collect as much possible trash, just decorates to the mouth door. Alternatively is to find the cursed gem, which has cursed this dungeon to look like a mansion, which changes its shape and size every time a new party arrives. You see, every time adventurers enter the dungeon reconfigures itself. But now, back to the game. First of all, best way to run this one-shot is using Owlbear in tandem with the extension known as Fog of War, which allows your players to see the vision of the place how you deem it correct. To give the player carrying the lantern 60 feet of vision, All other gets 20. As soon as you enter the dungeon, initiative has started and you all move according to it. This is because every 3 rounds, the DM rolls on this table to see which of the terrifying creatures will take interest in all of you. Also write down in which order they move in. As you can see, the chance of none of them seeing you is fair, in case you roll one of them, like 1 or 5. In case they do see them, spawn them in the room before or over, and terrorize the players according to the information I gave you. For example, if you're a hoarding bug, don't engage with the players until they drop or find scrap. If you're a bracken, try to follow the players for 10 rounds and then snap their fucking neck. Now then, let's look at the map. This map was made by me, and honestly, you don't have to use my map. I'm still going to link it. It's utterly terrible. This is my first time making a map. But yes, this is the map we'll be using for today. But if you just remember the main rooms, so to speak, you can just reuse it and re-edit it in your own way. Sigurd will inform the party of a nearby item every 10 rounds. And if the party is unaware of the dangers, you can inform them of it too. Sigurd, in this situation, is the guy behind the cameras. The party can also talk to Sigurd as an action at any moment. For information about the creatures, party members can hear each other in a 120 feet area, but they can roll a charisma check, DC 15, to scream in a 240 area. Now the main entrance room. The chamber's floor is wrought with iron bars, through which pulsating veins and a rhythmic thump of human hearts are visible. As if entwined in the very foundation, the walls and doors exude an aura reminiscent of a grand castle or a brooding mansion, adorned with aged tapestries and intrusive carvings, yet draped in cobwebs that hint of a year of neglect. As a gaze ascends, you are met with a surreal sight of a colossal heart, suspended above its steady beat, echoing through the chamber. Suddenly, the door behind disappears, and out of it comes a huge mouth. See her from the radio like seashell. Seems like the door is gone. The dungeon you're in has been cursed by an eldritch creature years ago. Not sure why, but there are many like it. The door behind it will eat any adult scrap and trash you find. Don't be too loud near, though. It can get pretty aggressive. The mouth indeed can be fed at any moment. However, if the players do shout, they have to roll a dex save or be subjugated to 3d10 necrotic damage. As tentacles come out of the mouth of the mouth of the door and ravages the loud player. Also, every time the players are done distilling their items, roll a 1d100, and if the roll is lower than 25, the last player to leave an item suffers the consequences. Don't tell them that! Make it a surprise. Speaking of death, those rocks Sigurd gave you, yeah, they respawn you at the start of a dungeon anytime you die. They have 3 charges, so you have 3 attempts to clear this dungeon. Make sure to come up with a quirky remark says Sigurd every time a player dies. Now back to exploring. Entering room 2, the players see the following: a room with a spike pit or it sends a balcony-like path, from which the players can continue their journey. The path splits onto a dead end and onto another door. Now, real quick, let's discuss scrap. Scrap can be anything you think an adventuring party can leave in a dungeon, as long as it's not usable anymore. You can use this if you want to, like this list I made, but you can come up with something yourself. Every time a party enters a room, roll 1d4 roll 1d4. The amount is how much scrap is there. If you roll 4, there are 3 small scrap pieces and 1 big piece. Small scrap pieces need a roll of 12 on a perception to be noticed. The peeking in the big piece needs 9. The big scrap costs twice as much, but we'll get into it. And once taken into their hands, they divide the carrier's movement by twice. When once taken, you cannot take any other more scrap. And carry max 4 small scrap, or 1 big and the 3 small. You have to go back and feed the door. The door requires 34 or 64 scrap, your choice. Points, yeah, scrap points. I guess big scrap is worth 2. The big scrap is worth 2 points. And also make sure to scatter the scraps around the room. Also, for each room, please, before the session, roll 1d20. If the roll is higher than a 17, the room contains a key, which can be used to open anything in the dungeon. The key turns to dust once used. Now back to room exploring. Room 2 is nothing to write home about. You know what it is, though. Room 3 has an animated, enchanted, huge crossbow, which attacks anything it sees in a 30 feet radius. Basically a turret. It will hit if the players don't leave in the matter of one round. Otherwise, 1d12 damage go BRRRR! By the way, don't tell the players, but they can close the door too. Room 4 is similar to Room 2 again. Room 5 is what I call an enhanced room. Roll 2d4 here, fellas. The room itself looks like the small storage chamber in the depth of a mansion, excusing an eerie aura. Its walls cloaked in the shadows that seem to dance and shift in the flickering candlelight. Dust moves slowly, lazily in the air, disturbed by the presence. Now, of course, there is a lot of stuff to carry, so if one of your players decides to go solo, roll with advantage on this table. Make sure a creature is near them. Room 6, a narrow staircase descends into darkness within the cramped chamber. Now let's go to the jumping rules here. Your players roll a strength check. The result is how far they jump, +5. But also there is a red door. But as soon as the player is near the door, Sinister chimes in. The crimson door may not be what it seems. Beware the mimic, a cunning creature that takes on the guise of objects, waiting to ensure the unwary. It even can take the form of a door. The monster is an instant kill anything it touches. Anything that thinks it's a good idea to open the door. But here's the thing, the dungeon which I made, which is terrible, it has 3 fire exits. Now don't tell your player this, one of them is real. Which one? You determine that, my friend. I personally decided that in this case, this very first one is the exit. The fire exit magically teleports them outside the dungeon. However, the fire exit only moves a single creature out of its bounds. It disappears into the wall right after. As the players move throughout the passageways, narrow rotting passage will appear peering in decay. Whispers of forgotten times linger, warning of unseen dangers. Room 8 is a dead end. You can also see a weird passage that looks like, again, a fancy balcony. In room 9. Room 10 is an empty room with rotten wallpapers, with a locked door, has stairs, but unfortunately you can't go down them for it's full of trash. And if the characters roll a perception check, DC 15, they can see fingers, eyes, noses, and legs of previous adventurers mixed with the regular scrap. If the adventurers try to take any scrap from here, you will be able to hear the hard bits of the heart throughout the dungeon. As the dungeon wall starts to concede, everyone has to roll a dexterity save. On a failed save, they take 10 damage. On a successful one, they take 5. And as soon as the walls damage the players, they go back into their regular size. Room 12 has nothing except an armor on a rail and a pressure plate that looks like this, and a pressure plate in the corner of the room. Once you press, the armor goes forward on the rail. If the players decided to stand on the plate, the armor will keep running in circles. If they are smart enough to leave something on the plate, the armor will keep spinning. Room 13 has 2 staircases going down, with a huge pit. As you can see, one of the doors are locked. They don't know that. Room 14, welcome to the Bracken Room. As soon as the player discovers this room, you have to use this table response for the next 5 rounds. In the heart of the dungeon, a child's bedroom frozen in time. Tainted by darkness, faded paintings adorn the wall, contrasting with the grim reality. And if the players decide to investigate and pass a DC 14 investigation check, they will find a pillow that is supposed to have something on top. They're not really sure. Room 15 is a dead end. Room 16 is a huge loot room with a staircase going down. But before we go down, room 17 is huge. Descending into the depth of the fortress, a colossal spiral staircase dominates the chamber. It's grandeur, matched only by its imposing size. When you enter the room, either a Bracken, Coilhead, or the Nutcracker, your choice, will start following the players down the staircase until they reach the 3rd floor. The monster in question will be scared and leave and the only thing on the 3rd floor is a locked room. At the foot of the colossal spiral staircase lies a chamber shrouded in darkness, save for a solitary, locked door. The room has 3 locked doors, one after another. The last one has a small bar. It looks like a prisoner door. The prisoner inside is a bearded human with a balding hair. His name is Mike. Now you get to choose if this is actually Mike or not. But for the sake of more information, at this moment, our dear Dungeon Masters, this is going to be either a masked or a doppelganger, your choice. Mike is happy to see you. His voice is kind of raspy and sure. He asks the adventurers to free him. To tell if Mike is lying and is not in fact a human, roll a DC 19 insight check. Mike also poses himself as a man who has been in the dungeon for years and knows its ins and outs. If you connect Sigurd to Mike through a seashell, Sigurd will have to pass the check. If he fails, he trusts Mike, and none of the players can roll an insight check. But let's say you leave Mike alone on the 3rd floor and go up to the 1st floor and go down again to the 2nd. Room 1 on the 2nd floor, I'm assuming you're going from the 16th room, so let's go through like this. The mansion and the dungeon exterior seem to collide with each other, as if a bunch of textures in a video game not matching each other. The room requires the players to roll a DC 14 perception check and then run if they see a huge animated crossbow. Room 3 is a similar room to room 1. It's connected to room 6 in floor 1. Room 4 is a dining room with a fireplace. This room has its own secrets, like room 5, which is locked, and if opened as soon as you walk in, it closes again. On a successful investigation 16 DC check, they find a small hatch from which you move in a small crevice and move from the fireplace. Fireplace itself is an illusion. Room 16 is another storage room, but they do have a kettle and a small campsite. Room 7 is a troll room. Remember, you are using Fog of War. However, location 8 and 9 are important. Location 8 has a teddy bear and 9 has a lantern, which enlightens in a small 20 feet area with a green light. A DC 24 Arcana check can tell you this lantern reveals if the creature is a shapeshifter. Room 12 is covered near the door full of boxes. Going inside, you find a rotten food, dead bodies, rusted weapons useless now. If the players pass DC 16 investigation check, they find a man's body carrying a diary. This is Mike. Sigurd turns his seashell on. You tell him what happens, but says nothing. Room 11 is full of scrap. It's the same room as one in the upper room. Room 10 contains the crystal of which you can take in charge of the zap gun. The crystal is a heavy item, and once taken, all the candles and light sources are gone. The vision is reduced to 10, and all doors are open now. Even the room back on the floor 3, all monsters go to their room or hide themselves somewhere as a doppelganger chases your party. The doppelganger scares all the monsters in the dungeon. The respawn anchor no longer works. As you leave the dungeon, you can hear the screams of a doppelganger as the dungeon burns down. It informs that there are way more dungeons out there. Now, let's go to the monster behaviors. Bracken. Bracken will follow your party unless noticed. You can try and confront it. If it successfully sneaks up on you and kills you, it drags your body back to its basement. This room. The way to deal with a Bracken is to either kill him or leave the teddy bear in his room, from which he will no longer attack and stay in his room. Coilhead. If you roll the Coilhead into the armor room, it will always follow the armor, ignoring you. He can be hoarding bugs. There can be 3 max bugs in the dungeon. The bugs will take any scrap you have found and left. Even if you decide not to feed the main door and leave it near the door, the bugs will eventually take it. If you want to get rid of them, you have to lure them into the huge scrap room. The big one. They will sit there and not touch you anymore. Jack-in-a-Box will only spawn in the 2nd floor or in the unique case in a big staircase. It can be lured into the secret room 5 in floor 2 and escape through a small hatch. The Jack-in-a-Box will keep screaming in that room. Masked. When you roll a 1 on a D4 scrap thing, there can be only 2 when you roll a 1 on a 1D4 scrap thing, a mask spawns. There can only be 2 masks in the entire dungeon. They can try to put it on, and I can tell you that's pretty much it. Nutcracker. When the Nutcracker tries to look with its eye, stun it and kill it with shovels. Don't miss. Now you have a shotgun. It has 3 bullets to your left. Use them wisely. Thumper can only be killed with a shovel or a shotgun. And finally, Mike, if freed, he wanted to help you, whether he is a human or not. If he's human, he'll just leave the dungeon with you, and the doppelganger will not spawn. And instead of the doppelganger, all the other monsters that you have not dealt with will try to attack you. But if he's indeed a monster, his presence gives the DM disadvantage on monster rolls. Once the party finds the real Mike or the generator, the fake Mike turns into the doppelganger and tries to follow you. He's always last in the initiative as soon as you find the generator, or he will try to chase you. If you manage to lose Mike in the dungeons, he will just be part of the monster's dungeon list, which now looks like this, and he will try to kill you any chance he gets. But this is mostly it. This is how I would run a Lethal Company one-shot. I think it's kind of interesting. It does have its own flaws. But again, I encourage you to make your own dungeon. This one's not really good. But yes, this video took way too long. It's, I think, my probably longest D&D video out of the 3 I made. So please show it some support. I really hope to make more D&D videos around different topics. I'm thinking about making one about JoJo, but we'll see. Or one about Chainsaw Man. Goodbye, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel.